Life with Jason Clemmons, DC,
We are live coming to you right here.
from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. Welcome to all you guys who are new. You guys, I talked to several of my patients today, didn't know about the show. So, welcome to you if you're here tuning in with us live, or if you catch us here after a while, because I know this time frame sometimes gets interfered with life and ball games and supper and things that people do. But maybe if you're back with us, you come catch us after a while, and this is your first show. You can go all the way back to September 1st. That's when we started it, and we are finishing our 10th month right now. And I'm telling you, it's been a great experience for me. It's been challenging. It's we've worked through a lot of stuff. We're trying to get it better. We're working on video. I'm working with I've upgraded all my technology here in the office. We're trying to make it something that's worth it, because I remembered exactly why I do the show today, because I was talking about the first day that I ever learned subluxation. And I was telling that story to a patient, and I was telling them about how I asked my brother-in-law, could my child have this same problem? And he was like, yes. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me that? And he said, well, I thought you knew. And I was like, who was going to teach me? Who was going to teach me that my nervous system is the master system of my body, and that a dime's weight of pressure on my nervous system can decrease the amount of energy flowing through my nerves by 40%. And then take all that stuff that I learned back in March of 2000 and fast forward it for 24 years, 3 months. And then who's going to teach me about right side, left side brain? Who's going to teach me that metformin jacks up mitochondria in the liver? Who's going to teach me that I'm better off with good nutrition, good sleep, good exercise, all that sort of thing? Because, man, the world's not going to teach me that. So that's what we do a show for. And every time I talk about chiropractic, I get fired up. And we're talking about chiropractic tonight. We talked about chiropractic last night, and we got into some articles, and I've got them right here, right where we left off. The same articles that we're talking about last night. We were really getting into one about the vagus nerve and what was going on with the vagus nerve. So we're going to just pick up right where we left off with that and go on with that. But before we do that, I've got a few things that I just want to, just sentences of the day, just thoughts of the day. So one of the conversations was the one of the conversation that we had today was patient came in with a headache, and I said, okay. And she's like, and I'm trying not to take an aspirin, like you say. And I was like, all right, well, let's talk about the 5 essentials of health. And it's been a little while since we talked about the 5 essentials of health. And the 5 essentials of health are food, water, oxygen, rest, and nerve energy. Those are the 5 essentials. So go back and ask yourself those 5 questions, the 5 questions that have to do with the 5 essentials of health. Food, what kind of food have you had today? Have you had anything to eat? What did you eat? Talked to a girl yesterday at 5'18", beautiful young girl, just graduated high school. And I talked to her yesterday, and I said, hey, what have you had to eat today? And she had a grilled a grilled cheese sandwich. Grilled cheese sandwich. That's what she'd had to eat today. And I was like, okay, well, it's 5:18. I was like, that's the only thing you've had to eat today? And she was like, yes. All right, think about that. If that's the only thing you have to eat in one day, what do you think your body's doing internally? It's not functioning properly. I could just tell you that. We'll just cut to the chase right there, right? Well, I'll just cut to the chase and say to you, hey, look, if all you had to eat today was a grilled cheese sandwich, you're not functioning properly. So food, we got to get good food, water. We're talking about the 5 essentials of health. Food, water. Have you had any water? Have you had any fluid? Do you have any any hydration going on in your body. Okay, if you had anything to drink. If you don't, you might get a headache. You might get dehydrated. You might get foggy headed. All those things might happen to you, right? Food, water, oxygen. When's the last time you went for a walk? When's the last time you got any oxygen at all? When's the last time you did any exercise, right? Those are things that are super important.
Food, water, oxygen, rest.
Rest is that fourth thing. Did you get any sleep last night? Nope, didn't get any sleep last night. Stayed up too late looking at my phone. Stayed up too late watching a movie. Stayed up too late doing things that were working against my health and wellness. Stayed up too late because I was at a little league ball game and they didn't even start till 8 o'clock. And then it was 10 o'clock before we were done. It was 11 o'clock before we got home. I was tired. Had to get up this morning. One of my nurses worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Thank you. That's what I told her. Thank you for working that shift. I do appreciate you working that shift because it's so important that somebody works that shift, right? We want a nurse to work 7 to 7. But man, you talk about jacking up your system. You don't get enough sleep. You can't figure out when breakfast is. Your whole clock is all turned upside down. And so that's rest. And the last thing, and here's the one that no one ever thinks about, is nerve energy. Ugh, I bit my tongue. Nerve energy. Do you have proper nerve flow from your brain to your body and from your body to your brain? Are you subluxated? Do you have interference in your nervous system? One of the ladies I was talking to today, she was on her way. She left her office, and one of her office mates is a sometimes adjusting person at my office, sometimes a patient. And she left her office, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to get adjusted." And he said, "All right, tell Dr. Clemmons I said hi." And then as she was walking out, some of her other people said, why do you go to the chiropractor? And her answer was, because I don't want to have neck surgery. That's her answer. But that's good enough. I mean, hey, it doesn't matter. Whatever your answer is, that's why you get adjusted. Yes. They had no idea why she was going to get adjusted. They don't understand it. Had a new patient today. Never been to a chiropractor before, 64 years old. He told me when we got finished, he's like, this is nothing like I expected it to be. I really thought she's just going to like lay me down, press on me. And I was like, no, that's not what we do at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. Like, we're trying to help you live a better life. We're trying to get your nervous system functioning as optimally as possible. Had another conversation today with one of my girls that I take care of, her whole family, and little boy's having some issues with some seizures and been through some stuff at Cook's Children's Hospital in Fort Worth, and we were dealing with some stuff, and she was telling me that the doctor there is anti-chiropractic. He's a neurologist. Why would you go get adjusted? And I was like, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter how high powered a person is. It doesn't matter how many degrees they have behind their name. It doesn't matter where they're from. And I said, is he Indian? And she's like, yes. Almost all the Indian doctors that I met are anti-chiropractic. I haven't met, now I'm not saying I'm not being racist or anything like that. The culture that they grew up in was, I guess there's not a lot of chiropractors in India. It's like, hey, they're not exposed to it, so they don't understand it. So if they don't want to get adjusted, that their doctor's saying that they don't want to get adjusted or they should never get adjusted, it's because they don't understand chiropractic. That's it. That's the only reason. So I could sit down and talk to them, talk about nervous system function, talk about parasympathetic and sympathetic function, talk about how the right and the left brain works, and make an argument and be like, oh, wow, yes. And that's why the other doctors that I take care of actually come get adjusted, and the nurses and the rest of them that come into the office, right? So let's go back. 5 essentials of health: food, water, oxygen, rest, nerve energy. Those are the 5 essentials of health right there. If you want your body to function better, improve those 5 things: food, water, oxygen, rest, nerve energy. Let me tell you things that are high on the glycemic index. Let me tell you things that will increase your blood sugar. And let me read you the article right here. I may not be able to get into this article tonight, but
Uh, excessive intake of sugar, an accomplice in inflammation. These guys right here, this is in the frontiers of immunology. Published online 2022, August 31st. Author's notes, author information, laboratory, see West China Hospital, Department of Rheumatology and Autoimmunology, another China hospital. There's a bunch of Chinese doctors right here, right? Okay, excessive intake of sugar, an accomplice of inflammation. High sugar intake has long been recognized as a potential environmental risk factor for increased incidence in many non-communicable diseases such as obesity, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes. Okay, but they went down here. We summarized the effects of consuming high levels of dietary hexose, which is fructose and glucose, on, listen to this, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, and inflammatory bowel disease, and low-grade chronic inflammation. There you go. They're going to summarize those things on autoimmune type diseases. So now we got autoimmune type diseases that are responding to high glucose intake, high fructose intake, right? Yes, that's true. And so what are foods that you eat that raise your blood sugar up really fast? Like macaroni and cheese. Mac and cheese is processed food. Mac and cheese is garbage. Mac and cheese unless you're starving to death, macaroni and cheese ought to be off the list. White potatoes, straight glucose, fast insulin, fast high blood sugar, right? Birthday cake is high sugar. All those things together, right? Eat them all at the same time. Eat sugar in your casserole. Eat bread that's refined. Have it all in the same meal and then find out how you feel the next day. What you're going to find out is you're going to be inflamed as heck the next day. It's going to inflame your whole system. So, right? Improve your food. Eat whole foods that are low glycemic load, complex carbohydrates. Eat grass-fed proteins. Eat your nuts, a little bit of them. Eat your berries instead of your fruits. There you go. I promise you. I promise you, you will feel better in 48 hours if you just cut out your refined carbohydrates. Food, get yourself some water, walk around the block, get yourself some rest, and make sure your nervous system is functioning properly. That's the 5 essentials of health, and it's just fundamentals. It's just absolutely fundamentals. So, all right, let's get going. Let's get back to where we were last night. I'll slow down a little bit. Sometimes I just get fired up about talking about some of this stuff. It's like there's so much hope out there in the universe. There is so much hope for you. I stayed up here after the show last night till 8:30 working on a girl from Nashville. She's just about to lose hope that there's nothing we can do. And I'm like, girl, there's so much hope. We can totally improve your life. I don't know what the heck the chiropractors in Nashville are doing but some you know how it goes. One of these medical doctors says, "Don't you get adjusted?" And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, no, that's not the way it works. It's like, look, I am a portal of entry doctor, meaning any person can come into my office for any reason. You do not need a referral to come to the chiropractic office in the state of Texas. Now, your insurance may require it, but you don't, as far as the rules go, you do not need that. And when you come into my office, I am the authority as to say whether or not you should or should not get adjusted. By law, not being cocky. I'm not trying to be cocky. If anybody who's watched this show, I hope you understand. That's not my part of my deal. I'm not trying to be cocky. By law, my responsibility is to determine whether or not you should get adjusted. Nobody else makes that decision. Nobody else makes that decision. The neurologist doesn't make that decision. The orthopedic surgeon doesn't make that decision. The nurse practitioner, none of those people make that decision. That's my responsibility. Is the patient a chiropractic candidate or not? If they're not, refer them to somebody that they're supposed to take care of their problem. If they are, there's no authority in the United States of America anywhere that says whether or not a person can get adjusted or not get adjusted. Just so you know that. Just plain and simple, just so you know that that's a fact. Okay? That's all I'm sharing with you. Your medical doctor said, oh, you shouldn't get adjusted. Well, hey, stay over in your lane for once, right? Your neurologist says you shouldn't get adjusted. No, that's your opinion. You don't have the expertise to say whether or not that person should get adjusted. That's factual right there. And am held to the judicial standard by the state of Texas to be the guy in my office to determine whether or not you should get adjusted. Now, do I listen to the patient? Absolutely. Do I listen? I had a patient yesterday said last time she got adjusted, she was dizzy for 2 weeks and immediately got nauseous and was sweating and all kinds of stuff. Had to have her husband help her out of the office. Now, what's crazy is she came back to my office after she heard me talk about the brain. Now, her last experience in the chiropractic office was very bad. So, number one, I had to do my due diligence to make sure that she was a candidate for chiropractic care. Number two, I listened to her and listened to what she was saying to me and was extremely careful about what we did. Didn't even adjust her neck. That's the crazy thing that they're like, you're going to pop my neck? I'm going to adjust your neck if it's appropriate, but I'm not going to adjust your neck if it's not appropriate. And so that whole conversation right there is like, look, we didn't adjust her. And I was going to use the activator, but I just didn't. We got stayed away from her neck. And then we used the vibration on her arm to drive her brain. Then we used her eyes up in a direction, and we used her head moving in a direction. And we used all of our neurological things that we do in the office. Then we went across and did the vibe plate work in the gym. Those are the things that we did. And I talked to her today, and she said she was fabulous. She was better. She said she had a great experience in our office, and she can't wait to come back. Not bragging, just telling you the experience, right? Just telling you the experience. Just did a guy today, it's got a plate in his neck. Went on vacation, fell 4 times on vacation, trying to walk around in an RV, driving down the highway, and the RV is swerving. He's got slick socks on, banged his head up against the RV, got numbness and tingling in both fingers, on both hands, the first 3 digits on both hands, got some numbness in that, and I already know he's got a plate and screw in his neck. He got adjusted today. Did I go? I know some of you guys might think that's crazy. It's not crazy. I've been taking care of him for several years. I know his spine. I know what's going on with him. And it's like, hey, we did our test. We did our due diligence. We checked his posture. We made sure that things were all right. And easy around the area. Did some soft tissue work after we were done. Used the activator around that particular area. He got up, walked out of the office. We'll check on him tomorrow, make sure his hands are a little bit better. That's, sorry, didn't mean to get going, but it's like, yes, those are the things, those are the fundamentals. That's the stuff. All right, let's get into the vagus nerve. We'll get back and get focused right here. And this is exactly where we picked up yesterday. And I'll roll it back up a minute. And what we're talking about, in case you weren't watching the show last night, this is an article from the Journal of Clinical Medicine, October 19th, 2018, Volume 7, number 10. It says PIIE 371. The vagus nerve can predict and possibly modulate non-communicable chronic diseases. non-communicable means like it's not the flu, something don't pass to each other, or AIDS or something like that, right? Chronic disease, introducing a neuroimmunological paradigm to the public health. This was done by some people in France, Belgium, another place in Belgium, and the College of Medicine at Ohio State University. Okay. And so this is the article that we're talking about, and it's talking about specifically heart rate variability, the sympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a major branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, uses acetylcholine. It's 85% sensory, 15% motor or brain to body, 85% body to brain. And then one of the things, and it was the global burden of disease includes non-communicable conditions such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, and COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. There was certain dietary factors or certain risk factors, behavioral risk factors, smoking and diet. And then there was pathophysiological contributing factors, the physiology inside your body contributing factors, the way that your body works contributing factors of oxidative stress, inflammation, and excessive sympathetic nerve activity. And that's an important point that's made right there. Excessive sympathetic nerve activity. The article introduces a new paradigm to predict, understand, prevent, and possibly treat such diseases based on the science of neuroimmunology and specifically by focusing on vagal neuromodulation, your vagus nerve neuromodulation. Okay, this is where we left off from last night. All right, so the key points of the article. Neuroimmunology is the science that investigates the interplay between the nervous and immune systems. That's what neuroimmunology is. The interplay between the nervous and the immune system. They are not independent. Every textbook that you will pick up, every textbook that I've picked up since the time I started studying this, says that the central nervous system is the master system of the body. The brain and spinal cord is the central nervous system. And the central nervous system is the master system of the body. So you cannot run your immune system by itself. You have to have it. You have to have your nervous system working and controlling it. So this is one of the moments right here that changed my entire life, because my brother-in-law used to say in his half hour to health class, he used to say, "Would you let me take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes from your brain to your heart?" And I would listen to him and I would think to myself, what is he talking about? There's a nerve that goes from my brain to my heart? Like your cardiovascular system. It's your like your heart and your lungs takes your blood, fills it up with oxygen from your lungs. Your heart pumps blood to your lungs, picks up the oxygen goes back to the heart pumps the blood throughout the body takes the oxygen, turns it into, uses it up, uses carbon dioxide. Your body takes the carbon dioxide, put it back in your veins bring it back to your heart sends it back over to your lungs, and you breathe it out, right? That's a very vital point right there, that you breathe it out. You breathe out carbon dioxide because your body doesn't want it in you, right? But we're not going to get off into that story about carbonated water. We're just going to talk about what I was thinking that night when he was talking about cutting that nerve from my brain to my heart. I was thinking, dude, what does your brain have to do with your heart? Why is your cardiovascular system dependent upon your nervous system? It's like, yes. I know 24 years later, it sounds silly, right? It's like, dude, everybody knows that. Maybe not everybody. Maybe you didn't know that. Maybe you can't run your cardiovascular system without your central nervous system. And what this article is saying is that neuroimmunology is the science that investigates the interplay between the nervous system and the immune system. High vagal nerve activity alters homeostasis. Homeostasis is balance inside your body. High vagal nerve activity alters homeostasis. It is key for neuromodulation. Heart rate variability, the vagal nerve index, could be used to predict onset and prognosis of major global disease burdens. Vagal nerve activity predicts the risk and prognosis in many major global disease. I guess that's what that is. Hang on. GBD. I don't know what that means. Vagal nerve activity predicts the risk and prognosis. Okay. High heart rate variability predicts reduced risk of overall mortality. High heart rate variability predicts reduced risk of overall mortality. Hey, we ran up on a break right there. Surprised me right there. Hey, stick with us. When we get back, we'll finish talking about what we're talking about. We'll get this vagus nerve broken down. We'll stay with this article. You guys stick with us. We'll be right back right after these messages. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. So while we're on the break for the radio, let's get that straight for all you guys that are watching on social media. Heart rate variability, what it's saying right here is high heart rate variability predicts reduced risk of overall mortality. So let me see if I can get it real quickly. Heart rate variability is, in case you don't understand what that means, if I can do this really quickly. All right, and I'm not going to draw this perfectly, but there's a heart rate, there's a heartbeat. Oh, sorry. You've seen that in the hospital. That little thing that's like that, and that's not drawn. There's little waves and all that stuff that it's supposed to be right there. But you've seen that before. That's your EKG, your heart rate printed out. Okay, what they have found that the distance from here to here, and the distance from here to here, and then each one of these peaks, if you measure that out, those distances are not the same. There's variability in the heart rate. And the variability, the more variability that there is a greater indicator of the efficiency of the sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. Your sympathetic activity is your fight or flight response. Your parasympathetic activity is your rest and recover response. So you want to have greater variability. You want to be able to have different distances, because when you take a breath in, you have oxygen inside your body and your heart rate's going to speed up just a little bit. When you take a breath out, you don't have any oxygen for the moment, and so you're actually going to slow down your heart rate just for a second. So just breathing changes the rate of the distance between those heartbeats. So when you have oxygen in there, you're going to fire that. And that's heart rate variability right there. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're talking about the vagus nerve, and we're talking about what this article that is talking about neurology and immunology put together, and how it might help us out and help us know whether or not we're sick or we're not sick. So high heart rate variability predicts reduced risk of mortality. If your heart rate, take that out for just a second. If your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, or you can map that down just a little bit, if your autonomic nervous system has good variability, you are flexible in your environment, you can move between parasympathetic and sympathetic activity with great flexibility, it decreases your chances of dying. That's what that says right there. Okay. Higher heart rate variability significantly predicts longer survival in cancer. That's one of the reasons that we added the heart rate variability study to our nutritional component. When you come in and get a nutritional evaluation in our office, we do a heart rate variability and a heart sound recorder on you, along with the in-body scan, along with the omega-6-3 ratio, along with the symptom survey that we do with standard process. It's pretty comprehensive. I had a I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's a PhD type level educated guy. Sees patients, all that sort of thing. He came in, did his nutritional evaluation with us, and when he was finished, he was like, "This is way more extensive than I thought it was going to be." And I was like, "Yes, because we can get a lot from that heart rate variability right there." So it is quite extensive information. So higher heart rate variability significantly predicts longer survival in cancer, meaning your body is better off in its ability to adapt even if you have cancer. And that was one of the sentences of the day. I don't treat patients with cancer. No, it's not true. I don't treat cancer in my office. It's not within my scope of practice. But do I have patients who get adjusted who have cancer? And the answer is yes. Why? Because the better their nervous system is working, the higher survival rate they have if they have cancer. That's what it's saying. Heart rate variability is inversely related to insulin resistance and to levels of HB1AC. So your hemoglobin A1C, sorry. It's inversely related. So the worse your insulin level is, the higher your A1C is, the lower chances that you have of living, right? Vagal nerve activity, parasympathetic acetylcholine, is related to frontal brain activity. The frontal lobe activity also regulates unhealthy lifestyle behaviors. So our executive center that helps us function properly functions better when our vagus nerve is functioning better. That's what that whole thing is saying to us. Okay? High vagal activity predicts reduced risk of global burden of disease. That's what that GBD was, global burden of disease, and better prognosis and global burden of diseases. High vagal activity is measured by greater heart rate variability. Okay, let me make those 2 points. High vagal activity predicts reduced risk of global burden of disease and better prognosis in global burden of diseases. High vagal activity is measured by greater heart rate variability. That's very important. Biologically, the vagus nerve inhibits oxidative stress, inflammation, and sympathetic activity and associated hypoxia. Biologically. Several non-pharmacological and non-invasive methods exist for activating the vagus nerve for neuromodulation. Well, there's a lot of things that you could do to activate the vagus nerve. You can get adjusted. That's one way you can activate the vagus nerve. It's not the only way, but it is one of the ways that you can do that. Evidence exists for the beneficial effects of vagus nerve activation in diabetes, stroke, myocardial infarction, and possibly cancer. Physical activity increases heart rate variability. Transcutaneous nerve stimulation devices have been developed. Various forms of meditation and yoga also increase heart rate variability. Modernization has brought heavy deleterious environmental, occupational, and lifestyle consequences with vast health implications. So here, let's move down just a little bit. With escalation of the global burden of disease, meaning people are getting sicker, there is one factor that is epidemiologically related to major causes of death, which is related to behavioral risk factors contributing to these diseases, and which is related to their common underlying pathophysiological causes. It is the vagus nerve hypothesis for global public health, reflecting a neuroimmunological paradigm. These authors focus on 3 pathophysiological causes of many major health problems: oxidative stress, inflammation, and excessive sympathetic activity. And there's where your chiropractic care really kicks in right there. because increased excessive sympathetic activity.
I laugh like this because feel myself, I feel myself touching on stuff. It's like, okay, here we go. Excessive sympathetic activity comes from increased activity in the right hemisphere of the brain. I hate to say that like that because that's one of the things that we do. We try to get that up and to the right, over to the left pathway that you guys know. You guys know is my favorite pathway, which is not really a pathway. And all the guys out there in the world that they know that, and they're like, why does he talk about that as if it's a serious pathway? Like, why does he do that? Right? Well, the reason I do that is because of the master and his emissary, and um and Jordan Peterson's book right here, the maps of meaning. Yes, that's why I do it. I do it because of the study. Because I finally figured out that if we can think about that, think about what that article is really saying to us. What that article is saying is that these authors focused on 3 pathophysiological causes of many major health problems, and one of them was excessive sympathetic activity. So, higher vagal activity predicts reduced risk of major chronic diseases. So, we can get the nervous system, if we can get the right side, the left side pathways to fire properly, we can get this. Now we can get them flowing back and forth together. We can get a person out of their right brain. We can actually decrease the global burden of disease. B.J. Palmer called it the big idea. He called it the big idea in, I don't know, sometime in the early 1900s, the mid 1900s. B.J. Palmer was talking about the big idea, like a subluxation changes the planet. A subluxation changes the planet. And a person that could reduce a subluxation should be a valuable, contributing human being to the planet. And it's why I have one of the coolest jobs on the planet. That it's like, dude, you actually get to detect and address subluxation on a daily basis, which has an effect on the global burden of disease. Hey, right here in Lubbock, Texas, the mecca of health and wellness. Lubbock, Texas, right here. This is it. You got it. Oxidative stress and chronic disease. Oxidative stress occurs when the body has more pro-oxidants than antioxidants. This damages molecules such as DNA. Hypoxia can drive oxidative stress. Pollution, let's look it up. I want to get the definition for you. What is the not my definition, but the actual definition? Hypoxia is a condition in which the body or a region of the body is deprived of adequate oxygen supply at the tissue level. Hypoxia may be classified as either generalized, affecting the whole body, or as local, affecting a body region. Hypoxia means when you do not have enough oxygen. Okay? Let me tell you something. We take a pulse ox on every single patient that comes into the office that as a new patient. So it's part of our new patient exam. We get their oxygen saturation level and their heart rate. And then when we ask them to stand up and we measure their heart rate again. And you would be surprised how many times that never changes. It goes from 72 beats per minute sitting down to 72 beats per minute standing up. Their sympathetic nervous system is not working right there. But on the oxygen saturation point, if you get to any time in the afternoon or any time and your oxygen is 94 or 95, 93, one of the first questions I will ask the patient, are you spontaneously waking up at 4 a.m.? I ask it 3 or 4 times this week. And the answers are always the same. It's like, oh no, it's 4:30. Okay, close enough. Okay. The second thing that they'll say is they'll tell me, yeah, I have to get up and go to the bathroom. Let me tell you what's happening right there. If your oxygen will drop to its lowest level between 4 and 7 a.m.
If your oxygen's at 93 or 94 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then your oxygen is dropping down between 4 and 7 a.m. And your cerebellum is becoming hypoxic. And that means without oxygen. And what your body's going to do is going to set off an alarm. That's going to be an alarmed response. You're going to get a sympathetic response from hypoxia in your brain, which is going to cause your brain to shunt blood from the outside of the brain out in the cortex down to the middle of the brain and the brain stem and the cerebellum. That's going to cause a decrease of blood pressure in the vessels on the outside of the brain. And that what I believe, based on my study, is decreasing blood pressure in those vessels causes those blood vessel walls to touch and stick. And now when the blood pressure increases, we get a stroke. Because then that's what happened to my dad. He had his stroke, his one and only stroke. He had it first thing in the morning. Yes, you become hypoxic. If you're checking your heart rate, if you've got a pulse ox and your heart rate, your oxygen saturation is 94, one of the things that 93, you really need to breathe. You really need to take some breaths. And what I say is every single time you roll over in bed at night, take a deep breath. Every time you realize you're awake enough to take a deep breath, take a deep breath. And a deep breath, you should be able to put your hands on your abdomen. And when you take that breath, your hands should extend away from your body. Your abdomen should expand, not your chest. It's not a... Ooh, sorry, hang on. I'm tripping on my wire. Shit. It's not a deep breath. A deep breath is... When you take a deep breath in, your abdomen is going to expand, not your chest. A lot of people will take they think they're taking a deep breath, and what's actually, they go like this. And their chest expands, but their stomach goes in. And that's not a deep breath. That's not what you're looking for. You want to breathe out, breathe that air out, push that air out of your lungs. And now breathe deep and pull that oxygen down into your lungs. Not shallow chest breathing. What did President Clinton say? I did not inhale, right? I was just puffing on that marijuana, right? We want to inhale deep down inside. Get that oxygen. You got to get that oxygen up. If you're spontaneously waking up at 4 a.m. and you think you're waking up because you got to go to the bathroom, you should check your oxygen and you should make sure you're breathing, because I personally, Dr. Clemmons thinks you're setting yourself up for a stroke. I wish I would have known that beforehand so I could have told my dad. But I'm telling you tonight. All right, let's get back to it. Hypoxia can drive oxidative stress. Oxidative stress occurs when the body has more pro-oxidants than antioxidants. You remember when we talked about the study that when I'm driving down the road, I had this conversation today too. I'm driving down the road, came on the radio. Hey, guess what? Study out of Harvard said eating your blueberries does not stop mitochondrial dysfunction. Just humor me for a second, because I thought about, when I had that conversation today, I actually thought about that. Harvard study on blueberries and mitochondrial dysfunction. Let's just see what happened. I don't know. This was like 15 years ago. I was just wondering personally if I could find that. I thought it would be really interesting if I could find that study. There's a bunch of them. You could do that. if you're interested, I won't get too far off base with that right there. But all I did is I just Harvard study on blueberries and mitochondrial dysfunction, and I use DuckDuckGo so it doesn't filter me right there. And I just put that in there, and I got a whole bunch of studies right there talking about that. But anyway, you got to get your antioxidants to balance your pro-oxidants, or you're going to get oxidative stress. Pollution-induced oxidative stress is linked to cardiovascular disease and cardiac death. Air pollution is also a risk factor for dementia. Pollution also causes inflammation to induced oxidative stresses and subsequent DNA damage. Obvious contributing factors in carcinogenesis. Yeah. So the one thing about that you got to understand is that mitochondria have their own DNA, because at one point mitochondria were outside the cell and they were their own thing. So they have their own DNA. So that is and don't get all fussy about that. It's totally fine if God put the mitochondrial inside the cell. That could work just fine too, right? So yes, stress is also associated with higher oxidative stress. Let's get to inflammation and chronic disease. Inflammation reflects recruitment of immune cells. Remember, inflammation is the initial stage of the immune response. If you have inflammation, you have immune response. Your immune system is responding, right? Inflammation reflects recruitment of immune cells, mostly innate, due to various danger signals: injury, infection, cell damage. Inflammation contributes to all stages of carcinogenesis, from escape, from apoptosis and tumor onset, to angiogenesis and metastasis. So your beginning of it, your spread of it, all kinds of cancers, right? Inflammation contributes to multiple stages of atherogenesis, plaque rupture, and thrombosis, bleeding. Inflammation is also a major contributing factor to insulin resistance, the main factor underlying diabetes. Psychosocial stress is related to elevated pro-inflammatory cytokines and to reduced anti-inflammatory cytokines. Psychosocial stress. If we get stressed out, then we're going to increase the inflammation. Inflammation over the overreaction of the immune system to dangerous signals underlies multiple non-communicable chronic diseases. Here's number 12: excessive sympathetic nervous system activity in chronic disease. Excessive sympathetic nervous system activity is related to cardiovascular disease by inducing greater oxygen demand from the heart and by inducing vasoconstriction, which can induce ischemia, being without oxygen. Vasoconstriction, sympathetic nervous system. High sympathetic nervous system activity affects the direction to which cancer cells will metastasize. Excessive sympathetic activity was found in diabetic patients to predict increased risk of cerebral and cardiovascular events, strokes, dementia, all that type of thing. Job stress is associated with higher sympathetic nervous system activity. Driving in peak traffic is associated with elevated catecholamines and sympathetic neurohormones. The prevalence and the possible impact of increased sympathetic nervous system activity on health are expected to rise in the future. That's a critical point. Of course it is. The more stressed out we get, the more right-brained we get, the more cancer we're going to have, the more sugar we eat, the more immune system function we dysfunction we create, the more brain dysfunction we create. The more brain dysfunction we create, the more chronic disease we're going to have. Physicians and health policymakers should use heart rate variability, quote, routinely for prediction and possible prevention of major diseases in the population. That's what we do at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. Thank you to Dr. Joe Fraley in Ruidoso, New Mexico, whose office did not burn down. Thank you for that. The vagus nerve inhibits oxidative stress, inflammation, and sympathetic activity. Let's say that again. The vagus nerve stimulation reduces oxidative stress. The vagus plays a key neuroimmune mediator and modulator between the peripheral immune signals and the brain. The vagus inhibits inflammation through two mechanisms via the activation of the HPA axis. You guys know that one, right? The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which results in systemic cortisol secretion, which reduces inflammation. This by firing the vagus nerve, we could decrease that HPA axis. Remember, we've gone over that before. The HPA axis and how it fires. And then hyperactivity of the HPA axis is anxiety and depression and concentration issues and ADHD, and high sugar and high cortisol, which means obesity, which means the lack of concentration. Why? Because focused attention is on the left hemisphere. And we're not getting that information over from the right side to the left side. So we don't have any focused attention. So we're ADD and we're depressed and our cholesterol's up. And then our doctor's going to want to put us on a statin and give us testosterone pills and all that garbage that's not wellness. Via the vagus to the spleen, activates splenic T cells, resulting in the inhibition of synthesis of inflammatory cytokines. Activity of the vagus nerve being a major part of the parasympathetic nervous system inhibits sympathetic activity. I'll read that again. This is quote, the activity of the vagus nerve being a major part of the parasympathetic nervous system inhibits sympathetic activity. An important parasympathetic role of the vagus is vasodilation. By inhibiting the sympathetic nervous system. Let's make sure we get that straight. An important parasympathetic role of the vagus is vasodilation, but the reason we get vasodilation is because we inhibit the sympathetic nervous system, which is causing vasoconstriction. Okay? Parasympathetic nervous system is when we're operating in a known world and we're not threatened. The left hemisphere of the brain. Up and to the right, over to the left. Left now inhibits the right. Now we got two sides talking to each other. Right side brain, left side brain are communicating with each other. Both of them are keeping the other one intact. Upper brain is happy. Lower brain is suppressed. Vagus nerve is calm. There we go. There we go. That's health. I'm telling you, that is health. This anti-hypoxic role is crucial for reducing risk of the risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and even also cancer, since many tumors flourish in hypoxic conditions, and hypoxia is prognostic in cancer. The anti-hypoxic role. Okay. Increased sympathetic nervous system. Increased sympathetic nervous system causes vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction decreases oxygen. Increases blood pressure. Parasympathetic activity inhibits sympathetic activity, creates vasodilation, increases oxygen, decreases hypoxia. Man, we're just about to run out of time again. That's just a lot of words we've covered. You guys will stick with that. Y'all heard a lot of words tonight. I appreciate you staying with us. I know that you got a lot of things to do. If you want to share the show with somebody, share it. If you think it would make somebody in your family healthier to watch the show, send it to them. If you think it would be better for you to have somebody to talk to, call me. 806-794-0400. That's the office number at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. That's where we are. If I can help you, please let me know. Hey, we will not be doing a live show tomorrow. I have one more wedding to go to. That's 4 for the year. So we're gonna do an encore show on the radio, and we will not be doing a show tomorrow. So I will see you guys on Monday at 6:00. Have a great weekend.